Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, what has been going on this month? I don't even know. This has been a crazy month as far as the market is concerned. A few items specifically have been affected in so many different ways, from so many different micro updates or trends and just kind of good old-fashioned mob mentality on, well, specifically the Mage's book, the Arcane Spirit Shield, the Tome of Fire even. And this all has to do with some of the new updates that were proposed. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that today and having a look at the market in December so far, and what we're likely to look at for the last part of 2019, almost a new year already. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and let's get started. Now let's go back a couple weeks here just to get the full story. So the new Nightmare of Ashihama boss was announced at RuneFest 2019. However, from the announcement till just a couple weeks ago, we hadn't really heard much about the boss until November 26th, where there was a blog post detailing what the new rewards are going to look like. In the blog post, there are multiple different unique rewards, and quite a few of them are going to be best in slot at certain areas. Generally, when new items are released that are best in slot, an existing item will crash in price and will become less in demand. I mean, that's just the nature of the game, but for whatever reason, even though quite a few of these items are going to be best in slot, the item that has caused the most amount of controversy and price changes is the Siren's tome. That along potentially with the Nightmare Staff. So on the 26th of November, they announced the Siren's tome. I believe when it was announced, this magic damage percentage was 20%, which is just kind of hilarious looking back at it now. Okay, so now let's have a look at the wild ride that was the Arcane Spirit Shield. Okay, November 25th, it's holding steady at about 140 mil, and one word comes of that update, it plummets by about 30% or 25%, which is a massive decrease, bringing it down to nearly a record low. Now, there was a significant crash, however, there was a recovery. Now, I think a lot of people, including me, thought that, well, the Siren's Tome in its current state will probably not pass, so at that point, the Arcane Spirit Shield would be worth what it was before, around 140 mil. So in my opinion, that is what this recovery here is, just an assumption that there's no way that this is going to pass in that state. However, during that week, the new items actually do receive a pretty significant nerf, and that culminates on December 5th when there is an actual blog post nerfing things further. The Siren's Tome gets a massive nerf to the magic attack bonus, the magic damage bonus is nerfed to 4%, and on top of that, the Siren's Tome is now created using a mage's book. We'll get to that in a second. Now, what's really interesting is now that the new item has been nerfed, people's assumption is that it is more likely to pass a poll, which means the Arcane is more likely to be devalued, which causes the price again to start crashing back downwards. And somewhere around here is when the poll results are published and everything is passed, including the Siren's Tome, which means it's going to be entering the game, it's going to be devaluing the Arcane to some degree, and the item starts plummeting more. However, that is not the end of the story. This morning, there is a blog post called The Nightmare Poll Results. And essentially what it is saying is that even though the Siren's Tome passed a poll, they've decided not to add it to the game. Part of the reason being that it is devaluing the Arcane Spirit Shield, and they just didn't feel like it was the appropriate place or time to add it to the game, which I don't really have much of a problem with, just kind of interesting. And now, of course, the Arcane is spiking back up in price, close to where it was before. So that is the story of the Arcane Spirit Shield. What a crazy ride that has been this month. Now, like I mentioned on December 5th, there was a blog update nerfing the Siren's Tome, and in addition, it added in a secondary requirement that it would be created out of the Mage's book. Now, that caused the Mage's book to go from around 4 or 5 mil up to, it peaked at 20 mil. I know some people who sold their Mage's book at 20 million GP. That is just crazy. Now, it did quickly crash back down after that. Once again, when the poll results are published, the Mage's book starts to go up more because, well, we're pretty much certain at this point that it's going to be entering the game. Haha, psych. Of course, this morning, there's an announcement that it is not, in fact, going to be entering the game, and it crashes back down. Interestingly, to lower than what it was before, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who are trying to get rid of it, but it's kind of hit the floor once again. And another item that kind of followed a similar trend was the Tome of Fire. Now, the Tome of Fire is more attached to the Nightmare Staff because that is what you'll be using it with, and it spiked up in price by a significant amount when the Siren's tome got nerfed, as it was becoming a viable replacement at that point, and with it not entering the game, it looks like the Tome of Fire may still increase in price further. But yeah, what a crazy month for mage gear specifically, but let's move on to something else now. Now, like I said earlier, the Siren's tome is not the only best in slot item that is coming with the new update. The Nightmare Staff looks, for all intents and purposes, like it could be the best in slot item, and the Inquisitor's Mace. However, what's kind of interesting to me is the existing items that fill that same niche have not been affected as much as the Arcane or the Mage's Book. Like for example, here we have the Sanguinesti Staff. While it has decreased a significant amount from around 90 mil, it went down to 77 mil. Overall though, it has not been affected to the same degree. However, it has followed a pretty similar trend, decreasing quickly but not as dramatically as the Arcane, down to around 77 mil. And the Kodai Wand is another item that is filling a similar niche to the Nightmare Staff. And once again, it has decreased a bit in price, but not that dramatically. Another item I wanted to quickly look at here is the Rapier. While it obviously is not filling the same niche as the Inquisitor's Mace because the Rapier is Slash and the Mace is Crush, surprisingly, the Rapier has actually been affected fairly significantly, but not at first, not until this second game update on December 5th. Now, what's kind of interesting is that the Inquisitor's Mace didn't actually receive any changes, except for new animations. I don't think that would be contributing to the Rapier's crash. So I would like to pose you the question, because I'm honestly not 100% sure. Why do you think the Rapier crashed during that update by about 7 or 8 mil and has continued to fall after that? I would guess that it has to do with all these other items being nerfed, and once again, the likelihood of the poll actually passing being much higher. I always forget about the Scythe, but the Scythe is currently one of the best in slot items, arguably. Definitely not best in slot everywhere, but after the release of the reward blog, it went from 600 mil down to 545 mil, which is a 50 mil decrease. Very, very significant. But then almost immediately after that, rose back up to 620 mil. Kind of similar to where it was before. Once again, I'm not entirely sure what the reason was. I would just guess huge panic from having a new potential best in slot weapon. It rebounded a significant amount, and now most likely is going to continue decreasing in price. Luckily for me, it doesn't look like the Twisted Bow is going anywhere. Probably one of the most consistent streaks for the Twisted Bow I've seen in quite a while. Now, I don't have that much to say about bonds, but they have been going up in a very consistent way, and it is mid-December, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we are looking to see a pretty significant fall off in the new year. Last year in January, bonds dropped down to 3 mil. So if bonds don't drop back to around 3 mil in January, then we can probably expect overall bond prices to just continue to be higher and higher and higher. Like if something similar happens next year and it increases from 3 mil all the way up to like 6 mil at its peak, then for simplicity's sake, let's just say it doubles in price throughout the year. So if it goes to 4 mil, then next December it could go as high as 8 mil, which is way out of reach of anyone actually attempting to earn it in free-to-play. Now, another interesting thing that happened this week is the Christmas event, and obviously a few items have been affected, mainly the holiday items. But interestingly enough, not to the degree that they were affected last year. I think a lot more people have caught on to the merching potential of the holiday items. For example, if we look at the blue party hat, historically the blue party hat is always more expensive. The reason for that is it combines into the party hats and specs with the Sagacious spectacles. But if we look at the month trend, yes, it did drop a bit, but only from around 15 mil down to 7 mil now, so only about in half. And if we look at one of the other party hats, currently valued at around 2,000 GP. Did I say million before? I meant 1,000. Going from maybe 5k down to 1.5k, 2k, where if we look at last year, they were valued at around 15k when they finally dropped down. So definitely a fairly significant difference. Now, the last thing that I want to look at, and something that a lot of people have been discussing this month, is Zolcano and how it is affecting the economy. Now, first up here, let's have a look at the Zolcano unique drops. First up here, we have the Zolcano shard, which is pretty much worthless right now, only worth around 20k, and it bottomed out back in November. We have the Crystal Tool Seed, which is only worth 400k right now. Again, decreasing in price extremely rapidly. Over the last month, has gone from 1.7 mil down to 400k. And last up here we have onyxes, which have held their value better than the pure Volcano uniques, but they're still on a pretty significant downward trend. One thing worth noting is the alch value for the crystal tool seed is 300k, and it's not going to be too long till it actually hits alch value, and that's not to mention ore and bars. Now, Volcano isn't the only boss that is feeding a ton of resources into the economy, but it seems to be one that has gained popularity because so many of the drops have tanked in value just over the last couple of months. Something to keep an eye on for sure. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, any arguments, anything you want to talk about, please leave a comment down below. I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching guys, and I will see you next time.